How do you introduce a man who started his first business venture when he was just 16? How do you introduce a man who's gone on to create over 400 different companies across diverse sectors? How do you introduce a man who's tried to travel the world in a hot air balloon? How do you introduce a man who can take you to the deepest points of any of the 5 oceans in the world or give you a ticket into space? How do you introduce a man who believes in sticking it to the big ones? I won't even bother attempting to introduce him to you because anything that I say will sound cliched and perhaps a tad boring. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Richard Branson. Thank you very much for joining us here, Richard.
Lovely to see you again.
Let me start by asking you about the question that everybody in India wants an answer to. Is Richard Branson going to buy into an Indian aviation company now that the rules have been changed? Are you going to be the white knight that comes in and saves any of our beleaguered Indian airline companies?
Sadly, I think not immediately. I think we're just starting flying to Mumbai, and that's something we're starting from tomorrow from London. We already do the Delhi London, but I think that at the moment there seems to be an overcapacity in the Indian aviation market that is hurting all the airlines, and I think that sadly it looks likely that 1 or 2 of those airlines may die, which sometimes is necessary, in the forest for, trees that are not as efficient as other trees to die and make room for others. So maybe one day, now the rules have changed, we might, partner up with somebody.
Has anybody reached out to you, by the way?
I think it's been fairly apparent in the press that there are people who would like a Virgin to come and marry up with them, but we're not in any specific talks. I hope, for the sake of the employees of some of these companies, that there is a white knight that comes and saves them. But it could be that it's necessary for 1 or 2 of these companies to disappear, and hopefully for those employees to get jobs in other companies. I mean, I know that we've taken on quite a few people recently from one particular company that's in trouble.
Do you believe that it's the death of the full-service airline as well, and do you believe that it is going to be a market of low-cost airlines only here in India?
No, I think there's always going to be a market for a quality airline. I hope so, because Virgin is a quality airline.
Do you think one of the common mistakes that people make, and not just in the aviation business, but across businesses, is the obsession with the front end and not enough thought goes into the back end and actually aligning the front end with the back end? Do you believe that that is one of the biggest entrepreneurial mistakes?
If the majority of your customers are going to be traveling in your economy class cabins, and it's extremely unwise not to look after them. About 20 years ago, we were the first airline to put seat-back videos into all our economy class seats, and we were about 6 years ahead of anybody else.
But that's what a lot of people in India attempted to do, and they're sitting on a debt of about 7,000 crore rupees currently for just one airline.
Most likely, there's a number of different reasons why that particular airline has had problems. And I don't know the exact details, but I don't think having quality for people traveling in the economy need to be a thing of the past. I don't think the airline industry has to just become one big unpleasant bus service going forward.
All right, let me move away from the airline business and talk to you about what else interests you in India. You attempted to come into the mobile market with a joint venture with Tata's. That hasn't gone as per plan, is what we're given to understand. What interests you about India? It's one of the fastest growing markets in any of the consumer spaces. What can we expect from the Virgin Group here as far as India is concerned? We have looked at and expanded in a lot of other countries around the world. And we haven't expanded in India because it's of the laws that have existed up until now. But going forward, now there's a lot more flexibility about overseas companies coming and partnering up with Indian companies. But there's only in specific sectors, aviation in particular, telecom in particular, but not across the board. I mean, you've got every major multinational. Retail now, the rules have changed, yes.
49%.
Yes.
Yeah, but then of course Indians can come and set up and have done very successfully in the UK, and most shops I shop in are 100% owned by Indians in the UK, Land Rover, it's 100% owned by an Indian company in the UK. So anyway, it's a step in the right direction. But I mean, I suspect that for India to become, to really, get 100% investment from overseas, it needs to go a bit further.
So you're only interested if you can come in 100%?
We don't mind having partners. I mean,
with the
Virgin brand, we like to control the brand because we don't want anybody. We've got 400 companies around the world with the Virgin brand attached to it, and the last thing we want is anyone to damage that brand, and therefore having control of the brand is quite important to us. And now, if you want to set up a business with us, I'm sure we would.
Should I give you a call?
Of course.
or any of the young entrepreneurs who are sitting in this room should give you a call. But any areas in specific that you've identified as potential areas that Virgin would like to foray into, with or without a partner?
See, most of my time these days is spent setting up not-for-profit charitable ventures and not setting up new businesses. I mean, our team at Virgin are still hungry for new business ventures, but
is there really any other Virgin territory left that hasn't been sort of co-opted by you?
Well, there are lots of problems in the world, and that's what I'm enjoying spending my time doing now. And so I mean, from here I go to Egypt for a meeting of the elders, where they're trying to tackle conflicts in the world, and and then from there I go on to another meeting with something called the Carbon War Room, which is trying to get on top of the problems of global warming. And so I've had great fun building businesses, making lots of money, but I'm now, I suppose, trying to give back a bit more.
Virgin is Richard Branson. You are the brand. You are the sort of brand ambassador. You are the PR director. You are this brand. Pretty much what we saw happen with Apple and Steve Jobs. I mean, Steve Jobs was Apple. Apple was Steve Jobs. How do you? Is this a challenge that you're thinking about? How do you address this issue? What happens to Virgin post Richard Branson?
We used to be in the recording business, and when one of our recording artists died, the records sold enormous quantities, so Virgin will be fine when I go. No, but more seriously, I have a tremendous team of people who run Virgin, which has frees me up to go and spend more time on the philanthropic side. And if the companies want me to dive in and help out, I will do so, and hopefully sprinkle a little bit of magic dust and get a new company off the ground or whatever. I do have two lovely children, Holly and Sam. They have tons of personality. They're bright, they're intelligent, they're young, they're good looking.
So the succession plan has been put in place?
If they want to, Holly's just got to the age, we just got married, so we'll have to see whether she, how much time children are going to take up. And Sam's running his own film company and doing some wonderful film projects. When my balloon bursts, or one or other of them, I'm sure will be very, very capable of keeping the Virgin brand going.
I want to talk to you about the way that you've actually run this business, and for you, your motto has always been screw business as usual. But this whole business of creating a branded, venture capitalist model that you've created, what are the limitations of that? And amongst the many lessons that you've learned in your experience, do you now tend to believe that perhaps less is more?
Well, I'm known as Dr. Yes, and I just can't resist a new challenge. So, and that's why, Virgin's unlike any other brand really in the world, in a sense, in that, we've become a way of life brand. We've taken on the big guys in a lot of different industries, and generally speaking, we seem to have succeeded more often than not. Possibly, if we just specialized in the first company we set up, which was the music industry, we may not have gone bust, but then most music companies are in real trouble today. And one of the reasons we're doing so many different things is I just love the challenge. I love, why shouldn't we be able to afford to go to space? And
will any of those ventures make money?
Obviously, some of them are, otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here today. I think what Virgin's been good at, we've been in the airline business for 30 years. Every single one of our competitors, bar one, and that's about 18 different competitors, they've all gone bust. Virgin has survived. because it offers a great product.
One of the criticisms of this, strategy of yours has been that people won't really know what the Virgin brand stands for because you're spread out across so many diverse sectors. Is that something that you worry about? Is that something that you think about? And the fact of overextension of the brand, of perhaps diluting the brand, and the fact that some of these businesses may go bust, and then the tag of failure, in a sense, get attached to the family brand?
Well, we've never had a company go bust, and we never plan to have a company go bust. And I actually think that people really do know what Virgin stands for. I mean, we're generally in any poll voted either the most respected brand in the world or the second most respected. So, maybe sometimes Apple beats us, but anyway, we're up in the top 3 of the most respected brands in the world. And I think that's because each individual company that we build, we're the best in the field.
But when something doesn't work the way that you hope it would, how difficult is the decision to divest? How difficult is the decision to exit? How difficult is it then to say, no, enough?
It's certainly difficult. I mean, and you have to be quite strong. I mean, I'll give you an example. We were flying to Mumbai 4 years ago, and we hadn't got the right slots at Heathrow. We were losing quite a lot of money on it. And we said, okay, we'll pull off Mumbai until we get the right slots at Heathrow. We've now got the right slots at Heathrow. Excuse for another party. We're back again, and hopefully this time, we'll stay forever. But if we find we're wrong in our calculations, we are willing to retrench on occasions. And if you don't retrench on occasions, you can actually destroy a company. So you've got to make some tough decisions on occasions.
And your efforts currently are about giving back to society. The raging debate on whether the current structure of capitalism actually works or not, and that debate is on in India. There's allegations and a lot of talk about crony capitalism. Britain has faced it as well. How do you respond to that? And do you believe that, whether it's corporate India or corporates in Britain or corporates in America, the way that business has been run has actually created this wall of resentment that we're now seeing? What needs to change to your mind?
There's no question that a few greedy bankers let the world down big time, and the world is still coming out of a very lengthy recession as a result. But I don't think that should that every other entrepreneur and business person need feel bad about that. Recently launched a book called Screw Business as Usual. Which is basically to say to business leaders and entrepreneurs worldwide, we can't just leave all the problems of the world to governments to solve. We can't leave it to social workers to solve. We are entrepreneurs. We know how to look at problems. I think in a different way maybe than social workers and governments. So. Let's make sure that every single business in the world adopts a problem or adopts a number of problems and tries to
help. Should that be legislated? Should that be mandated by governments? Because that's the attempt or the experiment that we're trying to attempt here in India.
I think it would be much better if it came from the heart of the people who are running companies, because I think then the employees will feel proud of the companies they work for, and I think. Companies can, if companies work with governments and the social sector, we will get on top of.
The problem sometimes is that companies work too closely with the governments.
Not in the UK, maybe in India, but I don't think that's a big problem. I mean, I think that capitalism is the only system that works. I mean, every other system has been tried, and it's great to see all these budding entrepreneurs trying to. Come up with new ideas and creating new jobs, which is what is going to get everybody back to work and going to fuel the economy. But all I'm saying, and I think this is all that's necessary, is let's make sure that if they're fortunate enough to be successful, that they use that wealth responsibly and constructively, and not just bigger and bigger this and bigger that for their personal families.
So since we're talking about making a difference and you were talking about screwing business as usual, if I were to ask you what are the top 5 things that you would recommend to young entrepreneurs who are getting started, who are scaling up at this point in time, what would you suggest they do?
Find really great people to come and work with you on it, and make sure that they 100% believe in what you're trying to do. be somebody who's really good at motivating people. Be somebody who's good at praising people. Don't jump down the throat of people. Don't criticize people. And so get a real family of team around you. Be willing to use yourself to get out there and market it.
Like yourself.
Yeah, make a fool of yourself.
But what is it living the life of Richard Branson, living the life where you're being chased, or headlines are chasing you wherever you go? People talk about this flamboyant lifestyle. Are you really like that?
It depends the definition of flamboyant. I've been together with the same lady for 34 years. We've got 2 wonderful children. We've got lots of great friends, and so so that gives me that sort of solid grounding. I just lived the most fantastic life, and it's just full of variety, and so whether it's setting up new businesses, tackling problems in the world, embarking on a new adventure.
So what is the new adventure likely to be? What is the next big dream that Richard Branson has?
We just about finished building a submarine to go to the deepest trenches in the Atlantic as a starter. How do
you come up with all this stuff? Do you just wake up at night and say, I want to go to the deepest end of the ocean, and tomorrow get the team organized and, hey guys, let's think about this?
Well, I am an oceanic elder, and what the oceanic elders are doing is trying to protect the species in the oceans, because there's enormous danger that some of the species are going to disappear. So I realize only 2 people have been below 20,000 feet, and yet the oceans go down to 38,000 feet, and there's a lot to explore down there, and there's Spanish galleons and English galleons, and so anyway, I just thought it would be fun to try to give it a go.
All right, I'm going to take questions from the audience.
But what's the next biggest dream that Richard Branson and the company would like to have?
Space travel is certainly the biggest thing I've ever dreamt about, and I decided that to write out a check to the Russians of $60 million to go into space was not really achieving anything, and I'd feel a bit bad about it. So I thought, rather than doing that, let's try to build our own spaceship. And now we're building this much bigger spaceship, which will be ready, hopefully next year.
How many tickets sold already?
We've got about 550 tickets sold.
Including Angelina Jolie. I believe.
Yeah, she may be coming, but if anybody wants to get rid of any mother-in-laws, we can do one-way tickets. We can, so the challenge for Virgin is to do what we do with other industries, with the space industry, and that is make it affordable for not only you lot in this room, who all look like you've done quite well already with your businesses, but for the teacher who wants to go to space, or a journalist, or so somebody on a basic salary, and I think that 20 years from now, maybe 15 years from now, hundreds of thousands of people will be able to have the chance of becoming astronauts.
Young entrepreneurs who dream big, they have to learn to deal with failure as much as they need to deal with success.
Absolutely.
So in your experience, what would you say is a good way to deal with and negotiate that path?
If you have a failure, just pick yourself up and try again, and keep trying until you succeed. And you often need your family family and your friends to support you through it, and you need society not to overly criticize you, and the press not to overly criticize people who are in that situation, because otherwise people won't try.
I just wanted to ask you how difficult a decision it was for you to sell off your first venture, Virgin Records. How emotional decision? What did you feel when you had to sell it off to build up your airline business? Yeah,
it's a good question. I mean, I think selling a company is not easy, because you're selling people, and with your first business, you're particularly attached to it. I have to admit, having just told the staff that we'd had to sell the record company in order to protect the airline, I ended up running off down the street with tears streaming down my face, hoping nobody was watching. I ran past a sign which said, Branson sells for $1 billion. And I thought, if anybody sees me crying and the $1 billion, didn't sort of add up somewhat. No, but I think sometimes, sometimes you have to make difficult decisions in life, and using that money from selling that first business, we wouldn't be going into space today, and we've created tens of thousands of jobs since.
Mr. Branson, I believe when you graduated from school, your headmaster said, I predict that you will either go to prison or become a millionaire. Did you go back and visit him ever?
I did. We became actually quite good friends afterwards, and I think he got both things right. I spent a night in prison once. I don't recommend it. I think everybody should spend one night in prison. It's actually a good way to make sure that you don't want to spend more than one night in prison.
Excellent. Richard Branson, it's a pleasure talking to you. We thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18, and we wish you the very best of luck with the next big Branson dream. Thanks very much indeed.
Very much.